The people who go after bus drivers and attack bus drivers for being late, of all things, Metro's policy is safety, service, schedule. Schedule is the last consideration. If the roads are bad, if the weather conditions are bad, if there's hazardous conditions, the bus is going to slow down because safety comes before schedule. Service, too. If somebody gets on the bus and needs to be strapped in, if there's a whole bunch of wheelchairs during rush hour especially, or on Sundays especially, we're more likely to see people in walkers and wheelchairs or women with baby carriages. And sometimes the people with the wheelchairs need to be strapped in, and that takes time. It takes time to load a wheelchair. Just a couple wheelchairs along the route, any given day will make a bus late. People in downtown area wandering across the street, especially at night, especially among the homeless communities, wandering across the street. Some of them might be intoxicated. Drivers have to slow down for people like that. They have to be vigilant. They have to be careful. They don't want to hurt anybody. Rainy conditions, the bus has to slow down. If somebody is late on one trip, and that bus has to do like 5 round trips during the course of the person's 8, 10, 14-hour shift, one late trip can make that driver late for the entire night. It's very hard to play catch up, and that's a lot of stress for the driver. There's a lot of stress in general trying to stay on time, and that's why we at least the company I work for, they really stress that schedule is the last consideration. If people have an important appointment or someplace they have to be, it's up to them to make it work. You don't catch the bus at the last moment that's going to get you there by a few minutes. You plan in advance and you catch a bus earlier to give yourself plenty of time just in case there's a sporting event or an accident or road construction or a street light that isn't working, or any number of things can happen that are beyond a driver's control. People who are sleeping on the bus, that the driver can't get off the bus, so she can't turn around and go back the other way, so she has to call the coordinator and they have to send the police out, and she ends up sitting there and she doesn't even get a break because this person's sleeping on her bus and won't get off her bus. Something like that is going to make her late. That happens a lot with our later in the night routes when there's no people. There should be no reason why a bus is going to be late later at night, except if you have a sleeper on your bus who refuses to get off your bus. Then you can be late. And what's really hard when that happens is then the bus goes back the other direction, and the people who don't understand why the driver is late, guess who they take it out on? They take it out on the driver, who had no control in the situation at all. And they call her names and they think she's a bad driver, when all she did was she was following the rules. We can't start going the other direction until the bus is cleared, and she can't go on her break, and maybe she has to go to the bathroom, and maybe she's just been given a 6-minute break to run to the bathroom, and she can't do it if there's somebody on her bus. So I just wish people would be a little bit more considerate to the driver. We have no control of traffic, road conditions. There's so many things that can happen from point A to point B that makes a bus late. And honestly, people who think that like 10 minutes is late, that's not late, really. Yeah, you have to be over a half hour to really be starting to be, called late. And even a half hour is pretty common during rush hour traffic. And bus breaking down, that's another thing that happens a lot, especially this summer. Buses break down. That makes drivers late too. Again, it's not something the driver has any control over. We don't get to pick our buses. Our buses are assigned to us. We have no control over what buses we get, or having a bus break down. We have no control over that. I just wish people would be a little kinder to other people and understand that driving a bus is a very stressful job. We deal with people throwing up on our buses. We deal with people throwing things at us. We deal with violent people and verbally aggressive and abusive people. We deal with people spitting on us. Now we're dealing with the coronavirus and people getting on our buses and falling asleep and coughing and sneezing with their mouth wide open. Imagine trying to drive a bus while you're afraid for your life. You're afraid about coronavirus. Maybe you have somebody at home who's vulnerable, an older person, and you don't want to take coronavirus home and you don't even know if you have coronavirus. It's a stressful time for us, and it's a stressful job anyway, but right now it's even more stressful. And again, I just wish people would be a little kinder and try to understand. Like I said, I used to be one of those people that would go off on drivers, but it's because I had never driven a bus. I didn't have a clue what goes into how stressful this job is. It is very stressful. I have never had stress problems in my life. Now that I drive a bus, I have stress problems. And there's times that I have gone home in tears. So I wish people would be kinder and understand this is a public service job and it isn't an easy job. And I have driven people home in the snow. I've been terrified to drive because of road conditions, going across the 520 bridge before it was replaced and having the water washing over the side of the bridge, spraying on my window, not being able to see in the pouring rain. Imagine that. And I was a new driver. It is hard to drive. It is scary sometimes to drive. Driving in the snow, not knowing if you're going to break down. There's so many things about driving that is hard and scary and dangerous and stressful. Now, when I see a driver, I want to say I am grateful for the people that come to work every day and do this job. And I just wanted to put this video together so people can think about it. When you're yelling at your driver because they're late, think about what happened before the driver got to this point. And by the way, while you're standing there yelling at the driver, you're actually making her even more late for the people who haven't gotten on the bus yet, who are still waiting for that bus. While you're yelling at that driver, you're making her or him even more late for other people who would like to get home. So anyway, if you've been watching, thank you. Just felt like saying that. I've just had a bad night last night. I got yelled at. It wasn't something I had any control of. I feel like people need to really have a clue and try to imagine what it's like to be in the other person's shoes.